Yes. So what we will do is I'll quickly go through the questions which can be asked from these two chapters, tribal society and caste system. It will be a short session for today because as I've told you, I cannot sit here for a long time. Yeah, I have this back issue. So I'm struggling with that. The treatment is going on. So I can hardly sit for, beyond 30 minutes, it's difficult. So we will discuss. In fact, I have taken the questions, but I'm not able to find it in the system also. I have missed it somewhere. So I'll discuss the questions and then we will see the way in which you will be answering. Right. Some of the modifications I've done already in this PDF that you can see here. I've added some features even here also. And I've told you when I was discussing in the class, the tribal Panchsheel can be a question, which also I have added in this problem of issues of integration and autonomy also have added in this. Same as what I've done in the chapter on caste system. So let's quickly discuss the questions which can be asked from this topic. Okay. So guys, this one, definitional problem of tribes, they will ask you directly, what are the problem in defining the tribe? Secondly, they can ask you simply tribe caste continuum. Okay. Or the third way in which they will ask you question, guys, understand one thing, all are one and the same. They will ask you GS Ghurye's idea on tribes, okay, or SC Dubé's idea on tribes. That also I have given here. If you see here, tribal Panchsheel is given here, okay. SC Dubé five-fold classification. So when they're asking you SC Dubé, you just need to mention about this five-fold classification. That is what actually expected. If you remember, when they ask you about the village studies on, with respect to a specific person, right? I've told you SC Dubé can be asked, MN Srinivas can be asked, different like this, Andre Beteille can be asked. So in case of they're asking you specific, now guys, it is going to be very difficult for you to study each and everything, right? It is impossible because in syllabus, no specificity is mentioned. They have not specifically mentioned SC Dubé, GS Ghurye, MN Srinivas or anything. Since there is a chapter on tribes, they can ask you directly Ghurye's understanding on tribe, right? That is the possibility that we are looking for. So when you're preparing for this, you don't want to go too much into it. Okay, what is Ghurye's understanding on tribes? Backward Hindus. And the classification which is given by Ghurye, right? Hill section assimilated to Hindu system, completely assimilated to Hindu system, partially assimilated to Hindu system. Okay, so that classification I'll give you. Same as the case with SC Dubé also. You have this five, classification. Now, if you remember village studies, I've told you 6 features you need to remember when it comes to SC Dubé. Beyond what something is general, right? Any village studies is asked, what you will be doing, you will be first talking about the pre-independence conception about village studies and idea of villages, right? Britishers understanding the monolithic, isolated and atomistic, unchanging entities, traditional aspects and everything. So post-independence, be it Ghurye, not Ghurye, extensively going for village studies, MN Srinivas, SC Dubé, Andre Beteille, Majumdar, any specific question they're asking, what's the most important point that you'll be putting forth? It will be the British understanding of monolithic, isolated, unchanging, atomistic entities. That idea has been changed. There are interconnection, there are integration, economic sphere, in the social sphere, in terms of exogamy, and all these things you need to mention, which is common for everyone. So no need to tell me that you don't have any content in that particular question. So generally you can write that, and then comes that specific 5-6 features, right? Similarly, when we discuss about SC Dubé or GS Ghurye, or these two are generally what they will ask you. Otherwise, in case if they're asking, the way we understand tribes is in the form of a continuum. Okay, this is what you need to know. So either they will ask you directly that tribe caste continuum. You know that, right? Tribe, that means very backward, primitive on one end, and assimilated to Hindu system or the caste system, that is at the other end, right? That is what tribe caste continuum. Beteille, FG Beteille have given the concept of tribe caste continuum, but in fact, all these scholars are talking about tribe caste continuum only. If you see here, GS Ghurye, 3 category, hill section, right? That is the backward Hindus. In fact, This is a word that you need to use. Maybe you can criticize towards the end. GS Ghurye has been criticized as a Brahminical sociologist or Hindu-centric bias and everything. So backward Hindus, that is his understanding. But ultimately, it is again tribe caste continuum. So you need to prepare an answer for tribe caste continuum. Generally, they can ask you tribe caste continuum, but any other question which they're asking, which is related to definition, understanding of any particular thinker, all these ultimately culminate into tribe caste continuum. So now it is GS Ghurye. So see here, this is nothing but tribe caste continuum, right? The first one, this is backward Hindus at the traditional level, somewhat Hinduized, that means somewhat assimilated to the system and then completely assimilated to the system. Again, if you see, they will not ask you Srikant committee and all, but you need to mention about Srikant committee if the question is about tribe caste continuum. Guys, I hope you are getting this, the way you need to connect it. It's not like paper one, we study something and we reproduce the same. And I've set a different standard for you in paper one. So you don't even, think about that way, what we have done in paper one. Here, whatever you come across, you should be in a position to remember, interconnect. So tribe caste continuum is asked, you will be talking about Srikant committee. You will write this, right? This is nothing but tribe caste continuum. First is the backward Hindus, that is GS Ghurye's understanding. Tribals, that means very primitive. And then semi-tribals, somewhat they came. Acculturated tribes, that means their culture is gone. Now they are into some other culture. And then assimilated tribes, assimilated to the mainstream, mainly Hindu system, the caste system. Same as what discussed by GS Ghurye here. Majumdar, again, if you see real primitive tribe with degree of association with Hindus, Hinduized tribes. This is also tribe caste continuum. Okay, guys. So what I want to tell you here is, now this is something which you need to keep in mind. They are going to ask you problem of definition in tribes. So first you need to tell that the common definition, this is a common definition, and there are problem in defining tribe on the basis of this definition, because the features which is mentioned here is also shared by the caste population as well. So there is some problem in defining the tribe, because you cannot define on the basis of language, you cannot define on the basis of culture. Why? A lot of mixing has happened. Okay, so backwardness you cannot mention. Talk about the problems and come up with the understanding on tribe in terms of tribe caste continuum. So the best way to understand a particular tribe group is tribe caste continuum. I hope that one is clear. Now in this, they may ask you GS Ghurye, they may ask you SC Dubey, but ultimately you will be talking about tribe caste continuum only. If that is fixed in your mind, just fit into the one which is asked. Whether it is definitional problem, you will be talking about tribe caste continuum. Tribe caste continuum is asked, you will be talking about the same. You mentioned about all these scholars also. If they're asking about GS Ghurye's understanding, first talk about definitional problem, then talk about the continuum, then talk about GS Ghurye's understanding. Also mention about his bookish view, his approach and everything. Okay, so that is how you will be solving that particular question. Now, there are some features, distinctive socio-cultural features of tribes, just for your reading purpose, which is given. Now, this one again, something which you can expect, colonial policies towards tribe. Then post-colonial policies. There is no need for me to discuss it here. You know that we have discussed in the class, so there is no point in discussing it. What are the colonial policies? Okay, and then post-colonial policies. Within post-colonial policies, yeah, here this policy of isolation, policy of assimilation, policy of integration. Policy of isolation, keeping them segregated. There are a lot of problem with that, right? Development is not happening, excluded and all those things. Then policy of assimilation, completely assimilated. So what happened? There is a threat to their identity. Policy of integration, bring them to the mainstream, but preserving their identity. Okay. So the different approaches are there. Reformist agenda. Forest policy and tribes can be another question. Just go through the note. Okay, that's enough. Consequences are going to be very important. Then post-colonial policies, all these, plus this can be asked as a separate 10 marker, guys. Simply like you have seen the previous year, right? Sex ratio, MG and RAGA. This is how they will ask you questions. So they can ask you tribal Panchsheel. Just because this topic is there, I don't remember whether this is asked or not, but there is always a possibility that this can be asked as a 10 marker. But if it is asked, you should not confine to your answer to this only, right? Not only this 5 points, talk about what do you mean by tribe, what are their issues, what are the policies before that, what briefly talk about the post-independence policy. As a part of it, you need to discuss about tribal Panchsheel. Also, you need to talk about the impact, consequences, what are the problems in implementing that. Okay, level of inequality, level of alienation still the tribes are facing. All these things need to be required. Now, I'll tell you one thing, that it is not worth reading that. In case if you need to read more about tribes, that book of Nadim Hasnain, that you can read, but it's not worth reading. There's so bulky. Whatever they can ask you, it is covered in the notes. Nothing more is required. I'll give you in question answer format also, like what I've given in paper one. Just wait for one day. I'm not able to get that. That's the reason why I'm discussing in this way. Okay, directly question, discuss the colonial policies towards the tribes and consequences. That's it. Now guys, any doubts here in this this area? If you have any doubts, you can ask me now, and then I'll move to caste system. There I'll briefly mention about Ghurye, Srinivas, Dumont, and Beteille. This one is easy, guys. Okay, tribes. Remember, these are the topics that you have. They may ask you geographical spread, but go through that. I have attached the materials also with you. The geographical spread is like in different areas. It's more of a geography question. Since it is there in the syllabus, they may ask you. We don't want to leave anything for chances. If you're getting those questions, lucky, right? Because everybody will write it, and the same is the answer. There is no need of any modification or anything. You see the question, you reproduce the same thing that you have learned. North, South, Central India, Western, East, and Northeast. You cover that, and that answer is ready. But this one, tribe-caste continuum, is the most important understanding that you need to have here. Colonial policies, post-colonial policies, once you read the note, it's over. Okay. And then okay, guys, I'll go through the caste. Okay, now I'll tell you the possible questions here. If you have that idea, then this is going to be very simple. One question which you can expect is related to the perspective. You have been given directly for GS Ghurye, MN Srinivas, Louis Dumont, and Beteille. Out of this, one question can be expected. Now, since they have given these four, the chances that they go beyond these perspective are very limited, very less, but still they can ask you Dibangar Gupta's understanding on caste, Yogendra Singh understanding on caste. Okay, so if that is the case, I'll give you the PDF for that. You can just read it, and then in case if you're getting the question, you should have some minimum content. But whatever is given in the syllabus, these four, GS Ghurye. Now, suppose they're asking you a question on GS Ghurye. What you will do? It is not simply about caste system. Take it in this way. First, you need to understand from the first chapter. You need to write from the first chapter his approach. His approach is mainly Indology. It is bookish understanding. So there is no field work. There is only understanding what matters. It's a culture-centric understanding. It's a culturological understanding. And he's going with an attributional approach. That means identifying the features of caste. And the most important part here is the features, 6 features given by GS Ghurye. You cannot afford to miss that. Just mug it up. The advantages, guys, let me tell you, I don't remember 2014 or 2015. 1 year I have in which I have given mains. I remember 2 questions was asked from this. One was features of caste system, direct. Second was GS Ghurye's understanding on caste system. Now, one thing is GS Ghurye's understanding on caste is attributional approach. Attributional approach means understanding caste in terms of its attributes. Attributes means features. So effectively, both these questions are one and the same. Only difference is that When it comes to GS Ghurye, you will be talking about what exactly he said. In the other question, you will be talking mainly about GS Ghurye 6 features plus MN Srinivas, Andre Beteille, Louis Dumont. Other features will also be incorporated along with some general approach. I hope you got the difference, right? It was asked in the same year, almost similar 2 questions was asked. So now imagine you're getting a question on GS Ghurye from chapter 1, his approach, his perspective. There, what all things you need to bring in? You need to talk about GS Ghurye's approach on caste, GS Ghurye's approach on tribe. All these things need to be incorporated along with whatever we have discussed in chapter 1, topic 1. Indology, classical Indology, modern Indology, that 4 features and its criticism. Along with that, substantiate whatever we are discussing in caste. Very, very important. I have not said that there, but it is very important. This is how you need to connect it. Similarly, what we have discussed just before, tribe, that also you need to bring in. When you go further in the chapter on family, since we have done in chapter paper 1 in detail, we don't want to discuss that depth in paper 2. So GS Ghurye's understanding on family. Okay, these 3, family and kinship, is what you need to bring in. So this is a case, if the question is about his approach, you need to talk about his approach, Indology, understanding on caste, understanding on tribe, understanding on family. 3 areas need to be covered there. All these can be asked as separate question in each of these chapters also. Okay, so here GS Ghurye's perspective on caste. If it is asked, what you will do? You will write about Indology, his approach and everything, then come to 6 features. What are the 6 features there? This is the 6 features. This is what you cannot afford to miss. Segmental division, hierarchy, okay, and then restriction on feeding and social intercourse, civil and religious disability, restrict the choice of occupation, caste endogamy. Okay, segmental division, you know, right? It is closed and it is divided into different segments: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. They are Varnas, and then Dalits, Avarna. Hierarchy, there is a order, right? The rank order is there. Restriction on feeding and social interaction. The way you eat and the way you interact with different castes is restricted. Civil religious disability. Use of rod, use of well, use of temple. Okay. And then choice of occupation. Caste endogamy. So we have discussed about the features. Now, what is the last step in this answer? You need to talk about the criticism. So you can even talk about general criticism of Ghurye, Hindu-centric approach, bookish approach. That's not necessarily correct. Now, guys, question is about GS Ghurye. Will you talk about, will you talk about MN Srinivas here? Question is about GS Ghurye. Will you talk about that? You have to talk about MN Srinivas, right? Because Ghurye's understanding is bookish view. Towards the end, you need to tell that whatever Ghurye have understood is from the books, that's not the actual reality. For example, MN Srinivas' concept of Sanskritization need to be there in your answer. MN Srinivas' concept of dominant caste need to be there in your answer. That is how you're going to criticize GS Ghurye. Now don't tell me, guys, you don't have enough content. We have very limited, but from wherever we are learning, we need to incorporate. Chapter 1, what we have learned is what we are using here. MN Srinivas we are using here. And each of these you can criticize, right? Restrict the choice of occupation. Is there any restriction in the modern society where the secular hierarchy is more important than the ritual hierarchy? No. Right? Mobility. Caste endogamy, is it followed now strictly? No. Is there any restriction on feeding and social intercourse? In general, maybe some areas, some sections in villages may be there, but is that there? No. Civil religious disability is there? No. So my point here is you talk about the perspective, okay, features, then you can, talk otherwise also. Definitely you have to talk about MN Srinivas. If Ghurye is asked, talk about MN Srinivas. That's for sure. That has to be printed in your mind. If MN Srinivas is asked, similarly, you have to start with Ghurye. No need to go with that, what we have discussed in chapter paper 1, criticism, relevance, general criticism and all. Here, you won't get that much opportunity and all. you need to bring in all other thinkers and all other approaches also here. For example, you guys, the question is about GS Ghurye. I've told you to write about MN Srinivas because that is very easy. You can also talk about Andre Beteille. You can also talk about Louis Dumont. Louis Dumont, in fact, it's almost similar to GS Ghurye. Dumont's understanding is also ideological and based on some bookish view only. But Andre Beteille is almost like Weber's approach. I'll come to that. Okay, three things have been taken into consideration, not only caste. He's also taking into consideration the economic angle, the class, and the power. Class also taken, power is also taken. You remember stratification of Weber, class, status, party. Here, caste, class, power. Okay. That also need to be mentioned. No need of CCR approach here. That is mainly in paper 1. No need of CCR approach or anything here. Just go randomly and write all those things that you know. Guys, in paper 2, you need to focus on every dimension, every angle. You talk about inequality. I'm always telling this now. Talk about inequality. What happened with the caste? Not only in this area, in general, in village study or any question. These are areas that you need to cover in an answer. What is happening with caste relation, class relation, migration, family, kinship, right? Sex ratio, all these things, problem of age, all these things, inequality need to be there in your answer. One way or the other, you need to mention. Stratification means inequality. Okay. So that is about GS Ghurye's approach on caste. I hope that is clear. Attributional approach. MN Srinivas also talking about attributes, but he's talking about ritual hierarchy, secular hierarchy. Now, what all things you will incorporate here? When you talk about GS Ghurye in this approach, you need to talk about bookish view, then talk about field view, actual reality. Because guys, why you need to mention MN Srinivas have started his understanding with the bookish view, right? Here, if you need to talk about what is the actual reality, first you need to read the books and you need to understand what is a bookish view. So MN Srinivas starting point itself is bookish view. So talk about that and then talk about these concepts like dominant caste, Sanskritization, everything. There's conditions of dominant caste as given here. Okay. Any caste other than Brahmin can also be dominant in an area, but there is a condition fairly, high. They should be fairly higher in hierarchy. It's not Dalit who can be dominant. Somewhat, better level should be there in the order. And then these are condition, economic, political factors, numerical strength should be there, land wealth should be there. That is the reason why when we discuss the impact of land reforms and green revolution, who got the most advantage during land reform? It is a middle peasant caste, right? It is not Brahmins or it is not at the Dalit level. Middle peasant caste. They are numerically very strong. Once green revolution was also done, they got economically very powerful. They have the land, economically powerful, numerical strength is there. They became dominant caste in many areas. You give the examples of Reddys, Kamas, Yadavs, Jats, and all these examples you can give. You need to give, not you can give. Okay, now Dumont's approach, they will simply ask you Homo hierarchicus. That is his book name. Okay, so it is like ideological approach. It is almost similar to bookish view. He will say that he's trying to identify the binary opposites in terms of purity and impurity. So caste is actually based on pure and impure. Okay, so it is the opposition between pure and impure. Based on that purity and impurity, the rank order is there. It is actually, what he says is opposite of equality is not inequality in India. It is hierarchy. It's a special type of inequality, which is a cultural inequality, which is based on purity and pollution. Those who are pure, they will be at the top. Occupation is also on the basis of that. It is almost similar to bookish view only. So division of labor in caste system is not on economic basis, but cultural basis, and it is not exploitative. Many scholars are of the opinion, especially Marxist scholars, this Judgmani system and all, it is purely economic dimension and it is exploitative because there is an unequal distribution of rewards. Some will get more rewards, some will get less reward. Those who are at the top will get more reward, bottom they get less reward. But that's not the case for Dumont. It's a on the basis of culture and it is not exploitative. Dumont's approach is also similar to Ghurye's approach. Yes, between pure and impure. It is between purity and impurity. Okay, so this is a system ideology of Indian society, which is not like Western ideology, modern versus tradition, holism versus individualism, hierarchy versus equality. So this is the point which I've told you. When you talk about equality, the opposite of equality is inequality. But that's not the case in Indian society. It is hierarchy. And there's a special type of hierarchy which is not actually inequality. It is based on purity and pollution. So purity against pollution, status against power. Status, status and power. Okay, so see here, he further says that the hierarchy is of status and hence is independent of power. So that Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, that is based on purity and impurity, and that is based on the status. So the hierarchy is based on the status. So that is one dimension. Even when I'm going to discuss about Andre Beteille, he also considered the same dimension. Caste is based on status. The same example is what I've given to you when I've discussed about Weber also. There I've discussed about class, status, party. So what is the example which I've given to you for status? It is nothing but the caste hierarchy. Okay. Here he's just trying to justify everything, right? And it has been criticized as modern manusmriti. His approach is because almost same thing, the in a different, what do you say, that old wine in the new bottle, right? This has been criticized like that. Modern manu, modern manu, right? Similarly, everything, marriage, eating, socialization, everything is based on this hierarchy, and this hierarchy is based on pure impure relation. Hierarchy. So Jajmani system is also based on hierarchy, and it is not based on economic criteria or anything. But this hierarchy is based on purity, impurity. Now these are the three central elements in his analysis: division of labor, again on the basis of pure and impure, superiority of pure and impure. Those who are at the top, they are at the top level of hierarchy. They are the most pure. There is a difference between Brahmin, Kshatriya, then Brahmin, Vaishya. More you come down, more will be the distance, right? That means impurity is actually increasing when you come down. The distance between Brahmin, Kshatriya and Brahmin, Vaishya is more. Similarly, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Kshatriya, Shudra is more. So that is what separation of two. Guys, these practices and all these are just something which you can read. He identified these practices like endogamy, cleanliness, vegetarianism. All these are considered superior, pure practices. That's what followed by the upper in the hierarchy. This is what I've told you before. Indian context, opposition of equality is hierarchy. Okay, now this one can be a separate question, substantialization of caste. This is what I was looking for. So what he is saying is that traditional interdependence has been replaced with competing interests. Can you give me one example for this? This one. What is the traditional interdependence that we are discussing here? Judgmani system and everything, right? So that interdependence, that obligatory relations are being changed and replacing it with competing interest and contractual relation. That's what he identified and termed as substantialization of caste. So this can be a separate question. So just keep in mind, this is what it is. These are criticism, guys. So Andre Beteille says, what you are saying is bookish view. What ought to be, how caste should be is what you are saying, but what caste is different. Same as the criticism that we are using for GS Ghurye also, right? Similarly, yeah, this Dibangar Gupta study, what he says is even the Dalits also maintain a sense of distance between Brahmins, because even they also consider, you know, Brahmins as lazy and greedy. So they don't interact with the Brahmins. Okay. There's a criticism, modern Manusmriti. Now, Andre Beteille's approach is somewhat more practical. What he says is what Weber said. Weber is of the, he considered this as stratification. So, what is the main difference between Andre Beteille and Louis Dumont? Louis Dumont don't consider it as inequality. Louis Dumont don't consider it as stratification. Louis Dumont says it is hierarchy. And this hierarchy is based on, not based on economic aspects. It is based on cultural aspect. It is based on purity and impurity. But when it comes to Andre Beteille, he consider it as stratification. It is clearly stratification. But there are different conditions need to be taken into consideration, like what Weber said. Stratification is not just one dimensional. Caste is one dimension. There is an economic dimension. There is a political dimension. Okay, so all these three need to be taken into consideration. So this is a more of a practical view. There also we have discussed, when we compared with Davis and Moore and Karl Marx, Weber understanding is better. Same is the case here compared to any understanding. Andre Beteille's understanding is better, and he have given different studies also. So it is not necessarily, again, Brahmins are economically powerful. There can be some others who are economically powerful. Okay, and Dumont's understanding, Ghurye's understanding, and all have been challenged here. So even Brahmins are selling their land to Dalits also. There are numerous examples when marketization of land and all happened. Brahmins are selling their lands. So what is more important, that beyond that status and everything, economic conditions is also very important. So there is a stratification. Three things need to be considered. Caste is one of the dimension. But when we discuss about Weber, we discuss class first. Class, status, party. When it comes to India, he discussed caste first, because that is more important. Caste, class, power. Same, instead of status, it is caste here. Instead of party, he is using power. Okay. So how empirical reality is totally different from cultural ideal type of caste. What Louis Dumont is saying is nothing but cultural ideal type. Is nothing but the same approach of GS Ghurye almost. That is why it has been criticized as modern Manusmriti. So this is what the Trinitarian approach. You need to also consider caste, kinship, class, power. All these are part of stratification. He challenged this occupational differentiation which has been discussed. So here he is talking about the role of kinship, the kin. Like if your father belonged to this industry, you will automatically, you know, whether you're a Brahmin or a Kshatriya, like film industry, right? Similarly, politics, civil services, right? All these are examples. Okay, this is what I was discussing before. This study is what, see, Dibangar Gupta, I wanted to say it is a study among Jats, but here there's a study among Dalits. This is what I was referring there. In Sripuram, it was not only Brahmins that maintained the distance, but Adi Dravidas, the depressed class. Also avoid mixing with Brahmins, as they so doing so will attract misfortune for them. Again, within Brahmins also there are unequal relations, Iyengar Brahmin and all having different, within them inequalities there. Okay, so guys, this is very simple. Just read it out and then simple. Features of caste system, as we have discussed, GS Ghurye's features, something which you can write. That should be there if the question is asked. Otherwise, all these things you can add. Direct. All these are direct, very simple. Endogamy, civil religious disabilities, and everything, right? Segmental division. Untouchability examples I've given here. Just go through that. This also can be asked. Mobility in caste system. Just go through this. I've given a lot of examples here: social movements and mobility, occupational mobility, political power and mobility, education mobility, Sanskritization, westernization. You can talk about Sanskritization, right? That's a clear-cut example of social mobility. You can talk about dominant caste, again, MN Srinivas. You can talk about hypergamy, hypogamy, or anuloma, pratiloma, okay? Policy of protective discrimination, positive discrimination, protective discrimination is the same. Reasons: secularization, democracy, industrialization, urbanization, modern education, constitution, law. All these are reasons. These are the questions which can be asked. So let me conclude this by saying that what you need to know from caste system mainly. These are the questions which you can expect. First, you should be knowing the perspective, the four perspective. That's for sure. GS Ghurye, MN Srinivas, Andre Beteille, Louis Dumont. Not only you need to know their perspective, you should be in a position to compare also. For example, GS Ghurye is asked, you have to bring in Louis Dumont also, because both are almost similar, and then bring in Andre Beteille and MN Srinivas if possible as a criticism. Because MN Srinivas' concept of the structural functional approach, or the concept of Sanskritization and dominant caste, you can use anywhere to criticize. At the same time, Andre Beteille is also challenging all the understanding which has been discussed by Louis Dumont and GS Ghurye, right? Whatever you have learned, you can write that. So you have enough content. Same as the approach you need to do. MN Srinivas is asked, bring others as well. Okay. Then features of caste system, very simple. Untouchability, they can ask you forms and perspective. Perspective, just read this Gandhi and Ambedkar. I have updated a video for that. Just watch that and read that PDF which is attached along with that. What else? That's it, guys. Nothing more can be asked from here. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll give you the questions. I'll give you questions tomorrow. You can just go through all the questions and then answers also will be given with that. Any doubt, guys? What you need for paper 2 mainly. Paper 2, it's all about vast reading, right? You have understood there is nothing which is fixed. Even if I am giving you some specific note, will you be able to answer the question from that note? No, right? We have discussed, if you see that topic on Indology or structural functional approach or Marxist perspective in the first chapter, if you take MN Srinivas, the question is asked on MN Srinivas perspective. With that note which is given in chapter 1, when I'm taking that chapter, will you be able to answer that question? Now you realized, right? Once we're done with caste system, you need to talk about that. Even you need to talk about Sanskritization, dominant caste. All these things are interconnected for the topics. So that is what you need to use. Anything you want to ask, now you can ask. We can discuss for 5 minutes. Next, we will meet on Sunday at 7:30. I will go through the other chapters as well with the questions. What happened? Louis Dumont, what happened? Louis Dumont. It's nothing, right? It is all about that purity and pollution concept. He's trying to understand that in terms of purity and pollution concept. That is again a culturological understanding. It is also similar to GS Ghurye's understanding. He's again trying to understand the features of caste system. And he's justifying that these inequality is something which is culturally created. These are not based on economic exploitation or anything, right? And he's emphasizing on division of labor, which is again based on purity and impurity. That segmental division, which is again based on purity and pollution, separation between the two, pure and impure. That is the core of Louis Dumont's approach. Similar to Indological approach, it's almost the same framework of GS Ghurye. Substantialization of caste can be asked as a separate question, but even Louis Dumont perspective was asked, you need to mention about that as well. Criticism, guys, talk about Andre Beteille, talk about MN Srinivas, talk about Dibangar Gupta also I've told, right? Criticism should be there for each approach. You need to write 1 or 2 or 3 criticisms, because you will not be getting 4. No, you know 4 approach, mainly 4 approach. They're asking you 1. They will only ask you 1. You need to mention the other 3 also. It is your responsibility actually, because you have learned that, and all are, you know, different. Maybe Louis Dumont and GS Ghurye to an extent same, but still try to, you know, write all the 4. Anyone is asked, like GS Ghurye is asked 75% GS Ghurye, rest of the 25% MN Srinivas, Andre Beteille, Louis Dumont, right, as a criticism. Same is the case with others also. You will not get 2 questions from this, only 1 question, but you need to arrange it in such a way that you will cover everything. Yes. Yeah. Anything else, guys? Guys, population dynamics and all, I will not be taking in the, I never take that in the live sessions. That you need to cover from, even I am not good in that. It has been taken by some other person. Okay, what is this population planning policy, sex ratio, birth rate, death rate? No, I don't take those things. The videos are there in the application. Just go through that. Material is also there. But approach, yeah, if sex ratio is asked, migration is asked, problems of age if they're asking, how are you going to approach that? That I'll discuss as questions. That is what I'm going to take on Sunday. Okay, I don't think, again, one more point, religion, chapter on religion is there. Guys, 2 topics are there. Religious communities in India. Do you want me to teach what are the religious communities in India? If you need to know, 1 minute it can be done. Muslim, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, right? And other religion. Then the topic is problem of religious minorities in India. That is somewhat something which you need to prepare also. In general, now what are minority? Except majority, all are minority. That means except Hindu, all are minority. Except Hindus, all are minority. Okay. So there are some common problems for minorities. So you need to know that common problems. And then there are specific problems for Muslims, for Parsis, for Sikhs and all. So prepare common problem, maybe 3 or 4 lines for all. Then similarly, separate problems also. And then some government policies for minorities in general and specific policies. Okay, but they will not ask you question from this. They will ask you question only if some minorities are there in news. Suppose related to Parsis, there is some program which has been launched by the government. Then they will ask you Parsis, Parsi community in India. Either they will ask you like that or problem of Parsi community in India. Like that they will ask you. But these are very simple, direct, nothing much like sociological. These are direct questions. But some concepts that you have learned in paper 1 may need to be added here.